the meeting to order. We'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our first item is approval of our minutes. We're going to ask that the minutes be approved separately. So we need a motion for the hearing.
So moved. Madam Chairman, I'll be abstaining from the hearing.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. And now we need a motion for the regular meeting.
I'll make a motion for regular meeting.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed. Our next item is the confirmation approval of our claims.
This month's claims, our total amount in our Fund 1 is $522,531.46. In our total claims, in our Fund 1 claims was $276,370.82. We take a look at, make a comparison to this time last year, and we are a little over this time. Last year was $202,979.83. Our difference is $73,390 more paid this year. A couple things that account for that. One is the amount of money that we paid on our playground equipment, which we're going to hear more about that in just a little while. Also, we are doing a upgrade in the auditorium. We'll tell you a little bit more about that in a bit. It was a $10,000 expenditure for partial payment on that. And then we had some nights mechanical. We did have some compressor issues in the middle school, and we've had to do some work there. So that's primarily the difference between this time and the last time. We have a total of $20,478.31 for our Fund 400, the debt service that we're paying on our bonds, and that would actually it's a two-bond series there. So those are our claims. I don't see anything unusual or out of the ordinary. I'd be glad to address any issue if you have a certain question about one of the items on claims.
Do we have a motion to approve the claims?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any more questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. Our next item is our financial report.
In our Treasurer's report this month, I just wanted to share some information with you. You may have noticed a check that we have made for $2,714 for postage. That does seem like a lot, but I wanted to let you know that that amount is for our tax bills that we will be sending. As you are well aware of, that we are one of the school districts that collect our own taxes. So we have sent that to Custom Solutions in advance, and we will be sending those tax bills out in the very near future. Also, you may also notice that this time of year, the main portion, the main bulk of all the supplies and things of that nature, materials, they've been processed, and we're pretty much in line with what our expenditures were this time last year concerning those classroom expenses. Obviously, that is something that we do see an increase in the first part of the year for obvious reasons. Also want to let you know that our CPA, Smith and Company, Jason Strange is our CPA, and he has been, his team has been in all of the schools. They have pretty much completed the field work there. They'll be starting down here this coming week. We'll be looking at getting into the details of our audit on this end. Everything does seem to be looking good. He seems to be very positive. and we'll let him make that final report, most likely to you at the October board meeting. So I did mention to you a moment ago about the auditorium upgrade after some 57 years. We think we have completed an upgrade at least one time. There's been some hit and miss, if you will, on the lighting system in there over the years, but we think we have a really good opportunity here. Let me try to explain to you what I'm saying with that. The lighting in the auditorium has been a very difficult project because it takes a board half as big as this table to operate a lighting system for an auditorium of that size. I don't think a lot of folks really realize how significant that auditorium really is compared to modern day auditoriums. You're not going to see much difference. It's just going to be a lot newer. Those clouds in the ceiling, those serpentine walls, all that is designed for sound. It's quite a special place. Now with modern technology, speaking of lights, we're going to be able to do it on a laptop instead of all of this huge equipment. We'll be able to move the laptop in and out and take care of that. So I think that's going to be a big plus for us. The sound obviously needs an update, and the curtains, back drapes, and things of that nature certainly need an upgrade. The back drape, to our knowledge, is 57 years old, and it's served us well. It may be time for a new one. So we're going to be doing some renovations there. We'll bring you more information as it comes to us. We're going to do it in 3 phases. The first being the curtains, and so one of those expenditures today was about $10,000 that we're paying for some hardware curtains and things of that nature to do the upgrade there. Also, I want to share with you, last month I was pretty excited to share with you our Wi-Fi upgrade, and there's been a little bit of a development since we spoke last. But it gets bad, but then it gets a lot better. So just stay with me on this. That grant that we received was for about $300,000, I think it's $309 to be exact. The total cost of the project was going to be about $364,000, I think, for the Wi-Fi upgrade. And I told you that we were going to get, the grant was going to cover a large portion of that, and then we were going to get a reimbursement on our old equipment, and we're going to be able to cash that in, and the total project was going to cost us about $22,000. And that was really good news in the end. We thought it was going to be about $77,000. What has happened since that time, we found out that if it's not in a K-12 building, then you can't upgrade the Wi-Fi with that particular grant. So this building for Wi-Fi, we'll have to do it separately, and then we will have to do the Early Childhood Education Center because it's not K-12. It'll also have to be done separately. And that's kind of the bad news on it because that's an additional $22,000 expenditure. So now we're up to $44,000. But the great news is, instead of $55,000 we learned yesterday, there's most likely going to be more like $79,000 on the old equipment. So we almost make it back up. Just wanted to share that with you because some things had changed on that. So all in all, it looks like it's going to be a really good situation from a technology standpoint. And I think that completes our, well, I did want to share with you that our current cash balance of $1,526,381 and 1 cent, it does balance, and you can see that on your document there.
I have a question concerning the lighting in the auditorium. This is, I don't know who's, is that yours? Is it all LED or is it?
That's our plan. Will be to upgrade to all LED.
That's a big deal. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that will be. A big savings in electricity too.
Well, and they just last forever.
They do.
Relatively speaking.
Mm-hmm. On the Wi-Fi, so how much will it cost be?
The total cost on that, hang on 1 second. I've got that number right here. Oh, hang on a second. Let me do some quick math here. Tracy, you don't have that handy, do you? It's 79 minus 55.
It's going to be about a wash, so it's still about 22.
4, so, yeah, so 24,000 we'll get, so it'll be about, well, instead of 22,000, it should be 20,000 now, if we get that additional 4,000 on the exchange of the equipment, so.
Okay. Even better.
That's all we have in the treasurer's report.
Okay, our next item is the superintendent's report.
Superintendent's report today, very glad to share with you. We have with us Mr. Paul Bowling, the Bardstown Elementary principal, and we've been working long and hard on that playground, and we had a very special program last week. We dedicated the playground to our beloved friend and co-worker that we lost 18 months or so ago, and it's just a really great program. We just thought that'd be nice today if we could just share with you. Mr. Bowling, is there any chance we have any before and after pictures?
We do. I made a...
That playground that the before was installed approximately in 1991. So we were certainly due an update. One thing we do around, it seems like at Bardstown City Schools, is we get our money's worth, don't we, of the equipment and things that we have. So we certainly do an update, and we're very excited today to be able to share with you. Mr. Bowman is pretty excited with his team over there, and we wanted you to see what all the excitement is about.
Thank you. As Mr. Hostcall mentioned, the playground has been there for about 24 years, the playground that we had. I'm going to go ahead and show you a picture of that. If I can get the thing to go here. Well, maybe I'll just click the mouse. Yeah. Okay. So this is a picture of the playground site before we did anything. And actually, there was some work done in this area here. It was really almost a jungle. It had been some kind of outdoor classroom at some point, and it had gotten a little out of hand, and it was not usable play space. And so we were really trying to figure out, what to do with that space. But before I get to that point, I just want to say that the PTO was talking to me about the playground already, and I was in the wake of the loss of Miss Netherland trying to figure out, a suitable, lasting memorial for our staff and to remember her at our school. And as the PTO was talking to me about the playground and I was thinking about the memorial, that's where the idea kind of came to be. And we got some folks together and thought, what if we did a playground project and made a memorial at the playground? We knew that we had some kids that were handicapped and had some special needs coming from the primary school that we did not have good play equipment for. And Miss Netherland was a special needs teacher, and everything just kind of, in my mind, it was all starting to fit together to possibly do this. So with that being said, we got some people together and started looking at the possibility and went to work. And without going through all the details, we went through a process of research, bids, having playground companies come out. We did some school visits, a lot of background work, but I'm not going to bog you down with all that. So here's what happened. The first thing that we, go ahead there, Lance, was this space here. We really felt that could be some usable space. Now, we didn't want to cut all the trees down. The big trees we wanted to be able to keep, but we wanted to be able to use that area for swings. And so we figured out that if we put a retaining wall back through here, that we could make that a flat, usable space and save the area up top and to save those trees for shade on the playground. So you can see already just the amount of dirt that came out of this hillside here, and we pushed it all over onto the playground area to make our space much bigger. Go ahead. There's the footers for the retaining wall, and you can see it's starting to flatten out. And so once the groundwork was complete, this is what we had. The retaining wall went out, and it looks short, but it's 80 feet long. And the amount of usable space that we had then almost doubled down there without really doing much other than moving some dirt. It sounds easy, I know, but it did require some bulldozers. So when the playground installers came, this was the site that they had to work with, and it was a great area. They really, it was easy for them and I kept them in contact the whole time. So that's where we looked like before we started. So go ahead to the next one. Once the area, when we started construction, you can see this area, and I know I'm spending some time here, but if you saw that area before and see it now, it's amazing what we did with that space. The retaining wall worked out perfect. There's a fence on top of it. I think you can probably see that. And then we have a row of swings. And when I did my research with the kids, I wasn't even sure that we were going to put swings on the playground. Our old swing set was kind of in disrepair and kids weren't using it much. But when I talked to kids, they wanted swings. That was one of their favorite things. I said, okay, we'll get swings. So we have a row of 8 brand new swings there, and they're full all the time.
It's one of my favorites.
You like it too? Okay. And so I just didn't know, and that's why we talked to kids. So we have the swings. That area turned out really nice. So go ahead. The play set itself, one of the things we wanted to make sure was that it was ADA compliant, but we also wanted it to be state-of-the-art. So some things that I want to point out, if you notice, if you look at playgrounds even around town or anywhere, most of them, you know, the platforms that you see here and here have poles that go from the top all the way to the ground. Well, this is called a center stage unit. It has one big pole in the middle that's about this big around, and then it has like a treehouse design. And so what that does is it opens up all the space underneath, and so it basically doubles your usable space. The kids can play underneath, and there's actually some, they call them monkey vines, and some things that the kids can play on underneath there. And it opens it up for visibility for staff to be able to see kids and what they're doing as well. There's an ADA transfer point here. The steps are all ADA compliant for kids to move around on. The decking is non-skid, and it also doesn't get hot because it's some type of powder coat that's really, really tough. Go ahead and go to the next one. Just uphill, where the old swing set used to be, we put a set of ADA swings, specifically for handicapped students. And then the 10 spin, this thing right here, that's been a real popular item. I have a picture of, you know, the first few days there was a line of kids at the 10 spin. But if you'll notice, the seats on the 10 spin, if you can see that seat, are the exact same seat that's here. It's an ADA seat that can accompany any type of student. And so they call this a 10 spin, by the way, because it holds 10 kids. There are 10 that sit facing out, and there are 10 that stand and face in, and they're the ones that are supposed to turn the top. So it can only get going so fast because they have to turn the top. So when we first started, we had some kids trying to run beside it and push it, and so we had to lay some ground rules out, but they've done really well with it. So just in short, the playground is state-of-the-art. I mean, we researched a bunch of different companies, and just a sidebar, the company that did this is Miracle Recreation. They were the same company that put our original set in a long time ago, and because we still had the old square poles, we were able to get a discount. There was an incentive program that if you were replacing, it's kind of like if you're driving a Silverado and you go buy a new one, they'll give you some incentive. It's the same kind of thing. So we were able to get a pretty good, I think it was 30 or 40% off of list prices on the new set. So we did well with the money we spent, I can tell you that, and I put a lot of time into researching that. Go to the next one. These are just some shots of the kids playing on the set. And go ahead. And this took place right after the dedication, which I'm going to tell you about next. Go ahead, Lynn. Those are the monkey vines underneath. And you notice here that there are even some staff on the swings, and they tend to like them as well. That was right after the dedication as well. Okay, so about the dedication. The news media during the summer kind of got wind that there was going to be a playground project, so they started to call. And so I spoke to the Netherland family just to try to figure out, you know, what were their feelings on how do we go about this, because we didn't want the news media to be up there every day, and because then it's in the news, and then that affects them. So talked to Stephanie, and you all may probably know Stephanie Thompson is a teacher in our building, and she's also Kathy Netherland's sister. So she did speak at the dedication on behalf of the faculty and the family, and it worked out very nice. But what we decided to do was, when we got to a point where we were ready to open the playground, we would have the dedication ceremony, do a press release, invite the news media in, and that's what we did, and that's why you see the microphones near the podium there. Go ahead, Lance. I worked with the company on a sign, and it just so happened that Miracle Recreation, this is not, we're not the first people to do a playground dedication, so they had some thoughts on that. I worked with the family to try to figure out what to put on the sign, and they came up with a nice list of sayings that they thought sounded like Kathy. So Stephanie and I kind of picked some out of that list and picked it out, and then we shot it back to the rest of the family members. What do you think about this? And so through some meetings and some back and forth, chose some phrases for the sign, and they loved it. Go ahead, and that's her mom and dad unveiling the sign there. But it says, "Welcome to Netherlands Playground Adventures, where the fun never ends." It says, "Happy times are never ending when we are playing and pretending. We are a peaceful community of friends, dedicated to our friend Kathy forever in our hearts." And if you'll remember, the bracelets that we did right after she passed said "forever in our hearts" on there, so there's some significance there. Those bracelets were blue, and when we did the balloon release, we had blue balloons in memory of that, but the bracelets, and then we had the purple, because Kathy, one thing about Kathy is she had a lot of school spirit, so that's part of the reason we wanted to do the purple and gold playground as well. So it's just been great, and I do want to thank you all for your support in helping make this project happen. And I realize it's a big project. And thanks to the PTO as well for helping, and I thank the child care as well. So I'll answer any questions that you may have.
You've been on the 10 spin?
I have been on the 10 spin. Yes, ma'am, I have. Actually, I have. I like the 10 spin. And the kids love it. So.
One touching thing that happened after the plaque was unveiled, her father went by and put his hand on her picture.
Yeah, there's a picture of that on the website. It was a special moment. So,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Boland.
You're welcome. Thank you all.
Also, a few other items to tell you about today. One of the focuses of this board several years back was our communication piece, communication to home. And each year in December, I give you a report on communication, and we do a follow-up at least twice a year at a minimum. Just want to let you know that we have finished our website reviews, and everything has come back. We did identify a couple of areas that we wanted to do a little bit better in, but I'd say it's still very high marks for all of our schools, and just want to let you know that we are monitoring that, and schools are doing a good job with the website. If you hadn't had a chance to go onto a website lately, just picked one at least and just peruse through it and kind of see what's going on. We appreciate your feedback also. Testing assessment results are going to, it's that time of year, and tomorrow we're actually going to have a quality control day. What that means is they give us scores, and we get a chance to our team gets a chance to look at those, make sure that something hasn't been left out inadvertently. It's kind of like you can throw the challenge flag out if you want to on something for the next couple of days, and they'll take a look at it and make a judgment on it if you feel like something's been left out. And that has happened in the past. Our high school last year, actually, the score was increased. It did make a difference by our challenge, and they did agree with us and made the change. That data will be released on September the 29th. It will be embargoed at that point until the 1st of October, when we're allowed to make it public. So just let you know that information is coming out. Can't tell you what it is because it's embargoed, but we're feeling pretty good about it. So we'll leave it at that. Reminder of the KSBA regional meeting in Elizabethtown. That again is on October the 29th. If you've not made arrangements, please see Elsie before you leave today. we'll get that taken care of for you, or Tracy can help you as well. We'll leave here at 4:50 if you're interested in carpooling. We'll leave this lot out front here. And then on November the 14th, be sure you mark your calendars. This will be November the 14th at 2 p.m. In the auditorium. We will be celebrating the 10th year of our strings program. We're very excited about that. We're also celebrating the 30th year of our Bardstown Foundation for Excellence in Public Education. And so come on out and be a part of that. It's going to be a special program. I think I've shared with you before, but a special program. We're going to have some folks, a special guest from Louisville Orchestra here, maybe several. And so along with our own students performing, and also past students who have gone on. So it's just going to be a really special afternoon, and we'll have a little dessert bar thing after we finish with the program. So plan on coming if you can.
What was that date, Rick?
November the 14th at 2 p.m. in the auditorium, the high school auditorium. I think we never, ourselves never charge an admission. I think there's going to be a little admission charged for a fundraiser for the strings program and the foundation.
Saturday?
Yes, that is a Saturday. And we've carefully checked for those collegiate football fans that are already thinking, we've looked that over, and it looks like a pretty good Saturday for that kind of thing. There never is a perfect Saturday, but it looks like a pretty good Saturday. Timing-wise. That concludes our report today.
All right. Our next item is the approval of fiscal year 2016 working budget, resource support systems.
That resource support system, that is a leftover from part of the evaluation system, and we're supposed to have this discussion about budgeting. It's something that we always did, but it's something that our commissioner wanted to make sure took place, so that's why that's listed as it is. You know, there are 3 parts to a school budget. We do this 3 times. In January, we have what's called the preliminary budget. In May, we have the tentative budget. And then today, we bring to you the working budget. And you know what the definition of a budget is. It's you do the best you can to identify how and where you're going to be spending your money for the coming year. And it acts as a very good guide. Obviously, you're much better off to have a budget than not to have one. I say that and then say right behind it, there are times when things change along the way. And we're going to talk about some of those changes. That's why we call it the working budget. And so as we get into this, I'll share some of those things with you. There are not very many, if any, new items in this budget. We're basically maintaining the current budget that we've had in past years. I would consider this to be a break-even budget. Our contingency is we'll go over that in just a minute, but it is fairly tight at about a 2.6% contingency. So there's not a lot of wiggle room on it, but as I said, there are times when you budget for things and you end up not using those. There's also times when you have funding and the funding doesn't come through, and we'll have that discussion. To begin with, I will let you know that, I'll remind you that this particular school year, we have reduced our total certified positions by 3 positions. I think that's important to mention to you. One of those, we had two retirements that we did not fill those positions, and then we had one resource teacher that moved from the classroom to a resource position. However, the majority, not every cent of it, but the majority of that salary is paid for by our grant that we received for math intervention. So that is something I wanted you to be aware of as we launch into this. Probably the best way to do this, if you will, just go onto your first page there and look at the top number there, the beginning balance.
Page number is that on that?
And that would be,
The actual page.
well, yeah, I don't know the actual.
52 of 166 of the document that you have.
And if you'll notice there on 0999, you'll see a balance of 1.4, well, $1,453,483.09. That's our beginning balance there. We're able to roll that number over. Then just the next 4 pages, if you've got to page 1, the next, and they'll be numbered 1 through 4 on your iPad, have to do with revenue. So we'll be taking a look at our revenue sources here, and then we'll do the expenditure side of it. But looking at the next line would be just below 117. Let's see, I'm not sure it's going to show up that way for you. Probably for you, it's going to be under. Yes, it is. Yeah, it would be a total ad taxes. See that, and it'd be $6,721,625. This will be the amount that would include your 4% increase of revenue that we passed recently. Then moving on over to our next page, to page 2. Again, you might notice these sources of revenue, and if you have any individual questions about those, feel free to ask those questions. But looking now, if you'll find the total revenue from state sources, and you'll see close to the bottom of page 2, $7,986,617, and that would be our SEEK funds. And again, that number, if you'll recall from year to year, that number fluctuates some, and that's what I mean about, we've got revenue numbers. Going back to that tax number I showed you just right before this one, what could take place on that particular revenue? It could be that people pay early. If they do, they're going to get a discount. It could be that people pay late, and that some of those folks are going to pay a penalty. It could be that some of those folks don't pay at all, and so we'll do the best we can to collect those. But everything varies. We were talking this morning about how the SEEK fund changes every single year. It's supposed to be $7 million, almost $8 million, but what will it actually be in December when it hits? Or in October, we'll get a preliminary number on that. So just keep those kind of things in mind. Flipping on over to page 3. Again, we'll look at another source of revenue here. This would be our total revenue from all state sources. And if you look just above that number, there's a $14 million number. See that $4,213,275. While that, and sometimes we get amounts in the budget that makes it look like overall compared this year's budget to last year's budget, it looks like we've had an increase. In this particular case, it's about a $22,000 increase, but all we're doing is we're putting, in this case, in the on behalf payments, we're putting $4 million in. We have to track it through this method, and we're required by the state to do that, and then it completely comes out. This is money that the state provides for staff with these on behalf payments that we have to track in code through the munis. So actually that 4.2 will come right back out, but it has to be tracked here. I hope that's not confusing to you, but it does skew the numbers sometimes when you look at it. So then again, our total state revenue would be $14,012,609. And looking right below that, you'll see under the Medicaid, $82,000 is money that we collect by being able to bill for Medicaid procedures, and that money is used in our special needs program. And the last source of funding would be on page over on page 4 that I want to share with you, and that is our fund transfers. And I have shared with you multiple times that we are allowed to, in these difficult financial times, we're allowed to use capital outlay funding and also the building fund money that's in excess that we're not using right now to pay bonds. So we're allowed to use that, and that's where we make that transfer. And you can see that's $676,783.16. And that's where that comes in. Then directly below that, you'll see your total revenue of $24,214,492.25. So this is our Fund 1 budget on the revenue side. I'm going to go a little quicker on the other side of it, but I do want to call some things to your attention. If you'll just flip on over to page 5, you just kind of peruse there, and I'll just tell you about some things. We have increased right there in that very first line, salaries for personnel services. That is a 2% mandated increase by our state government. The thing I want to remind you about and refresh your memory is that although a 2% increase, it's about $212,000 is what the actual increase of the raise cost a school district. But then you've got to look at all the benefits that go with it. We're paying a pretty good amount of retirement. We're paying more than we used to pay because we're paying our share, as the state has asked us to do, for I think up to 6 years. So there's about an $80,000 amount there that's in addition to what we would normally pay on retirement. There's the FICA tax that we pay, and when a salary increases, of course, it increases. And so that's the dilemma that we're in when it comes to increases on that particular page 5. But you can kind of get an idea of what's going on there.
Excuse me, Frank, where that number, $9,938,419, that's the one you're talking about, right?
You're right.
And you're saying that's under 0100, but really there should be a 0101, 02, 03, 04 that breaks that down, that shows the 212 and the 80 some odd thousand, so on and so forth. Is that broken down anywhere else?
Not on this report.
No, it's not on this report.
They all roll up to the 100
Those are
series.
pretty significant numbers.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I will break one down for you there. I did have one note closer to the bottom of that page, down to 0200 under it says district administrative support. Do you see that one?
228.
Mm-hmm. 228, 209. Here's one of those examples of where you budget for something that you may not use. If everyone that retired in the district that possibly could, and they made a claim on their sick days, we pay 30% for sick days, then that would be $168,041. And so you have to budget in that $228,000. There are some other expenses in there as well, other benefits that are included in that $228,000. But $168,000 of that is for in the event that everyone retired that possibly could. So the likelihood of us spending all that is probably not likely. Okay, good question. All right, and so then what you have to do on all the rest of the items and the expenses, when we talk about transportation, talk about utilities, talk about technology, those kind of expenses, we just have to go back on a historical basis, and we take it back, Tracy, up to 4 years. We go back into reserve at least 4 years and look at the average increase of diesel fuel, for example. In this case, maybe the actual decrease of diesel fuel, but whatever the case is, ever how it fluctuates, and we try to account and try to estimate the best we can on what our next coming school year would be in utilities and things. So for the most part, the rest of those expenses then would be based on historical past, on what they would amount to. And so that pretty much completes your Fund 1, and if you want to zip through there, I'll tell you about the rest of those. You have Fund 2, and Fund 2 includes our grants, our title programs, and that's what you call restricted funds, where Fund 1 might be considered unrestricted. There's only certain things you can spend that money on. So, and then you'll find Fund 21 in there, and they are the district activity accounts, and essentially, even though it shows up in our budget, again, that's another one of those increases. It's their money at the schools. We keep that here now. We write those checks for them. It's just a really good way to make sure we're in Red Book compliance It really keeps everything squeaky clean. The auditor really likes that and has made that recommendation. But that too affects our budget as well. And Fund 310 would be our capital outlay that we discussed. Our Fund 320 is our building fund, and some of that money is used towards debt service right now. Some of it is in excess, and we're allowed to roll that to our Fund 1 account. 400 is debt service, what we owe. 51, Fund 51 is our food service. I will tell you that you are so blessed as a Board of Education to have a food service such as ours. Not only do we provide excellent food, but probably as a result of providing excellent food, they are very financially fit. Whereas there are a lot of food service directors that have to continuously come back to the board to ask for money to just make the payroll and just make the ends meet. It's a well-ran operation, and I give credit to current director as well as the two before her. Fund 52 is a daycare. They also are in a healthy position. Fund 3, not Fund 3, but on page 31, and if you go to the very end of this document, and we'll wrap up this, but I want to show you when you put all the funds in with Fund 1, everything included, we have a total budget of $32,310,233.95. So again, I want to assure you that we have looked at this very carefully. It's not a haphazard kind of activity. It's something that we've spent many hours on preparing for you and preparing for this school year. And I think we put money. We have planned to spend it very wisely and cautiously. I'll be glad to answer any questions that you might have concerning this. I've taken a little bit of time to go over it, and I'll spend a little more time looking at the numbers, and because I certainly want you to be informed.
Make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second, are there any more questions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. I want to thank you on your hard work.
Thank you very much.
It's a difficult task.
Thank you, Ms. Rogers.
Our next item is approval of a shortened school day notices.
You're going to find 3 of these notices in your packet this time. We have had this in the past. In fact, 2 of these are continuations from last year. We do have 1 new child in our school district. If you've had a chance to review these individually, you'll see that there are specific needs that these students have, certain handicaps that prevent them from being at school for an entire school day. This is not something that we make a decision on. There are 2 key pieces to this. First of all, a medical doctor makes a recommendation, and then that recommendation is brought to an admissions and release committee, which we refer to as an ARC committee for special education. And that committee is made up of parents, special ed teachers, and a special ed chair and anybody that parent wants to invite to that meeting, and then they make a decision on whether or not a shortened school day is appropriate for this child based on the doctor's recommendation. Part of this process is that a local board of education must take a look at this, and it would need your approval before we could send it on to Frankfurt. And primarily, I don't think they're obviously not making you to make a judgment on whether or not the child is deserving of being a shortened school day. What they're asking you for is everything in place? Do we have a doctor's signature? Do we have a meeting that has made this recommendation? And everything is in order there, so be glad to answer any questions you have.
Approve all 3 of them at once.
I recommend it. There are three doctors. If you have trouble reading, there's 1 doctor's signature, difficult to read, but if you need help with that, we have printed it out just in case.
Move for approval of shortened school day notices for 3 individuals.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are there any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Our next item is the approval of the Missions and Release Committee Chair List.
We're just talking about the ARC meeting and the ARC chair. You know, just recently, we did approve a position for an ARC chair, and that person has taken over the job of 3 part-time folks, and actually we're saving some money with that full-time person. But there are times when that person's not available, and there are times when it's appropriate for someone else to chair a meeting. Our board policy states that every year, annually, we have to bring before you a list of those titles of the folks that could be conducting a chair. And so the people that you see on this list for both 504 meetings and also special education meetings, these folks have been trained, these positions have been trained in ARC chair, being able to conduct an ARC, and they are ready to go with your approval.
Okay, do we have approval for the list? We have 2 lists. 504 chairpersons and ARC members.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion to approve. Is there a second? Second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Our next item is approval of certified evaluation appeals panel appointments.
You may recognize this one as well. This is an annual event. Each year at this time, every certified employee receives an evaluation, and every certified employee has a right to appeal that evaluation. Fortunately, we don't have a lot of that takes place, but we must be prepared. Our policy says that we will have 2 people that represent the certified staff. There are a total of 3 people on the appeals committee. The superintendent appoints one of those people, and then 2 of those are elected by their peers to serve. And they have to be in place in the event that something does happen, that someone challenges an evaluation. We have to have that appeals committee in place so it can be ready to go. And so essentially what we do is that we have an election every year. You have to elect a person to go on. You also have to elect an alternate. So we take the 2 top vote getters. The very top vote getter will become the person on the appeals committee, because they can only serve 2 years, and the person rolls off, this person comes on, and the person who got the second most number of votes will become the alternate. In this case, it would be Marcy Ballard, who we're recommending to you to approve for the appeals committee to begin a 2-year stint on the appeals committee, and her alternate would be Ken Hardiman in the event that she can't serve for some reason. The other member that's currently on there that's serving from last year that you approved is Eric Harden. He'll be completing his this year, and then he will roll off next year if we do this again. So for our board policy says that we need to get your approval on this matter. So if you have any questions, we'll be glad to address those. If not, I recommend that you approve the appeals committee for this year.
Motion to approve the certified evaluation appeals panel appointment.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a question. Now, who's going to be on this year?
This year will be Eric Harden and Marcy Ballard, assuming that you approve her. And Ken Hardiman will be her alternate in the event that she can't serve.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The ayes have it. Our next item is approval of disengagement
Yeah,
of adult ed program.
well, adult education. As I told you in my notes, I'm reluctant to bring this to you. I really don't want to do it, but I think it is time for us to go ahead and make this change. And just to give you a little bit of history on this, I don't know when it started, but whenever adult ed started years ago in the state of Kentucky, we latched onto it at Bardstown City Schools. It belongs to us. We've owned it, and we've done a very good job with it. We have an excellent director, Ms. Belinda Carter, and there's been many excellent directors before her. We've just been very pleased. This is a program that allows students, for whatever reason, that they disengage with school and they come back and they want to get some sort of high school equivalent, a diploma, a GED. This is an opportunity for them. So it was brought to my attention just recently that Ms. Carter is going to be retiring after many, many years of doing excellent work with that program. And so we made a call to the adult education in the State Department, and we told them what was going on, and they shared with us that, you know, you're one of the few school systems that still have adult ed. It might be time you look at moving this to another organization, and someone that would be really good and is taking on many of the other communities would be the Elizabethtown Community Technical College program. They would oversee your adult ed. They've assured us that most likely the location will remain the same. The feeling that we receive from them is that they do not want to make any drastic changes. They want to keep the comfort level where it is. They want to offer the same excellent service that was being offered before. But they will take over actually hiring the new director, and essentially all we would have to do, you see a letter attached there in your packet, all we would have to do is have the chairperson sign that letter, and then the disengagement would begin effective December the 31st, 2015. The overall cost of the program, it's cost you as a board up to about $20,000. Now, we serve the entire Nelson County, just for the record. And there are times it's cost us as little as perhaps even $8,000 per year. The overall budget is about $180,000, which comes from a grant from the state. So essentially what we're doing is we're handing that grant over to Elizabethtown Community Technical College, and then they would have to subsidize if there is a difference and run the program here in our local community, but they would basically oversee the program. So as I said, I know Chairperson Reed here herself does not want to see that happen as well, and I'm sure many of you feel the same way, but I do recommend that we do make this change, and it's time to do it.
Is there a way to take it back if we're unhappy with their performance?
I don't think so. I will tell you there's a community ed piece that goes with this, and we will be keeping that community ed piece here in our school district, and we've got some plans on doing some things with that.
Truly a shame, because over the years we hand out diplomas to kids every year that really don't understand, don't appreciate what they have. When you go to these adult education graduations, you see people who've had to make major sacrifices, family and work, and they really understand and appreciate what they've got, because it enables them to better themselves and their families.
Well, Mr. Roby, speaking of, if you haven't seen that, if you've not been to one of those graduations, Jennifer Shrewsbury hardly misses one, but man, there are some passionate speeches at those graduations. There's usually 2 speakers at least, and they're just so grateful for what they have. And you're right, it's so powerful for a child getting ready to drop out of school or doesn't want to be in school, can hear one of those folks speak. It would be very motivational. All right. Any other discussion on this matter?
Now, we'll need approval to disengage.
For sure you're not going to do it.
Make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Reluctantly second.
Let the minutes show.
All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Reluctantly say aye.
And those opposed?
One final comment, Madam Chair. Belinda Carter, the director, she is in favor of this move. So this is not a hostile takeover. So she knows it's the right thing to do as well.
That's comforting. Also, it's a great condiment to, the community college.
Yes.
Next step. It is. So we had all ayes and no any nays. So
A few reluctant ayes, but
yeah. All right. Our next item is the approval of the BG1 project, the baseball dugouts.
Okay, this next item is a BG1. We haven't brought a BG1 to you for a long, long time. The rules are changing in the Kentucky Department of Education in the facilities area, and one of those things that they're requiring us to do now is any structure that you're going to complete that students will inhabit in any way, form, or fashion must be approved with the BG1. If it's a building, it must be approved. Even though you're not using bonding funds, and that used to be the way around that, we are paying for this out of general fund. You can see that BG1 there in your packet. It's a total work will be done in the neighborhood of around $33,000. What we have is a situation of some dugouts and other work in the baseball and softball area that are, particularly in the baseball, that are becoming unsafe. We have removed those dugouts. As a matter of fact, the wood has deteriorated to the point that being inside did cause some concern of collapse or something of that nature. Although it was in fairly good shape, it's not a chance that we wanted to take. So we are in a position now to complete the BG1, and if we do that at this time, from what I understand, we will be able to get those dugouts constructed. They will be made of block this time around, and they will be have metal on the roofs instead of asphalt shingles, and they will be in compliance with local code.
Do we have to hire an architect to do this?
We do, but their fee is $1,500, I think is what they
Is
charge.
that because of BG1 action?
Right.
Needs to be signed
And
off.
they have, Mr. Hood can comment on it, but I think they've reduced their price significantly. They've been very good about it.
That's 5% of the total cost that has to go in there for the BG1. He's assured me it probably will not be that much, but for purposes of this, he said put 5% on there, so most likely that will not.
They get us on big projects, though. That's where they make their living, so.
The architect, do they have to be an approved architect?
A state approved. Yes.
We've got a pretty good bunch of kids over there doing CADs that can design the thing themselves.
You gotta have the stamp.
I know,
That's true.
because of this. We need a stamp then.
Make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Our next item is the approval of the professional service contracts.
We have 3 professional service contracts, and we are extremely excited. Ms. Blackman is here. Kara Blackman is back there, and she of course, you know, Kara's just a go-getter, you know, and she applied for a Math Achievement Fund grant, and we received it. And it's great news because here's what we're so excited about, is that with our assessment scores, our goal is to close the gap, the achievement gap. When kids aren't learning, we're trying to remove the barriers, we're trying to do what we can to close that achievement gap. And what's so unique about this is that this grant, these 3 contracts that we're asking you to approve, by the way, they're paid for with grant money, so it doesn't cost us any money on this end. We're going to focus on kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade students. The whole idea is that if you're not a very good math student, that's typically where it starts. And so we're going to be focusing on foundational type of exercises and focusing on getting a good, solid foundation for math. We may not see the benefits of this program for 4, 5, 6, or 7 years maybe when these students start, if you will, clicking with math. So we're very, very excited about that. These are contract employees. This is the kind of thing, if you could be king for a day, you could have anything you wanted, this is exactly what you would want in a teaching staff, where you would be able to have additional teachers to be able to help with these very specific things. The good news about this, though, is you don't have to pay for the extra benefits and all of that, and it does come with a grant. I think we have the grant for, is it an annual or up to 3 years? And then we can reapply?
It's 2 years, but what you're looking at is Title VI, which is every year.
Mhm.
And so they're going to be working with Amy Helen with MAF. The
Yeah.
people, the contracts are with Title VI, and that's renewable every year.
Okay.
Do we have a
So we would, yeah, we do need your approval
Approval.
of the service contracts. Yes.
So moved.
okay, there's a
Second.
motion?
Second.
Oh, okay, and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The next is approval of travel authorization.
We have two of those. We have one overnight trip to Bowling Green, and we have another trip that's not overnight, but it is out of state, and they will come back in the same day. So we have a trip going to Bowling Green with drama, and they will be about 20 students, and there will be male and female chaperones. They will be traveling on a school bus. Again, that will be overnight. And then the other trip to Nashville is 50 students with FBLA, and we'll have male and female chaperones with them. Recommending approve.
Do we have any questions about the trips? And we need approval for both of them. We need both of them.
Make a motion to approve.
And we have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? And the next item is approval of a leave of absence request.
And we have Mary Lou Rogers, one of our custodians, and she's going to have a knee replacement. And all of her paperwork is in good order. Everything is squared up there, doctor's notes and whatnot. So I hope that you will approve that for her.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any more questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right. The next item is a resignation.
Just make you aware of the resignation. You see it there, and it's a instructional assistant near a childhood.
You'll see in your notes, your minutes, site-based decision-making council minutes. And then we need a motion to move into executive session to discuss real property per KRS 61.810, section 1B.
Make a motion to move to executive session.
The motion is the second.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Move it to executive session.
Thank you, my brain.